Hi, everybody. How are you today? Welcome to Knit with Laura and Loga. Loga. Hey, everybody. Welcome to log number 14. That is Knit with Laura and Lola. I'm Laura Nelkin. I am a knitwear designer who lives in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And I have an alter ego, Lola, who is super duper fun, and she shows up in these logs as I allow her to. Basically, the more comfortable I get, the more likely it is that Lola will come out for a visit. I have a lot to tell you about today. I took last week off of doing a log because I was worried I didn't have enough to share, and it turns out I've had to roll some things to next week's log because I can't yammer on for that long. I can yammer on for a pretty good long time, but not too long. Um, Things I'm going to talk about today are my new Bluprint class. I'm going to talk about how Pacifica DK Cal is going. I am going to show you guys a new tunic design I'm working on. It's in process, so I think that's going to be really fun to see. I am going to announce a new knit along that I'm going to put up in the Ravelry group because I've been missing a style of knit along that we had earlier this year, and I think you have been too. And then I'm going to talk about like my sewing and cooking and other stuff I'm watching, just kind of life stuff, to share that all with you. So without further ado, let's jump right in. First off, on Friday, last Friday, my new Bluprint class released. It's called Knitting with Beads Made Easy. And I already have a class with Bluprint that I did years ago, I would say going on 8 years ago, that's a knitting with beads class, but it's not a simple class. It's quite a long class, about 6 hours long, and I do two projects in it. One simpler cuff called Pioneer Cuff, and then a much more complicated lace pattern called a cola, and then I show how to put beads on one of my designs, Claris. And when Bluprint came to me, I think it was last fall, they emailed me and asked me if I wanted to do a class with them on knitting with beads. At first, I was like, I already did that. And then I thought about it and I realized that 8 years later, I know that material a bit differently. I've learned a lot since I first designed that class and taught it, and I've taught it many times live. And I knew that one of the problems with that class is it was like so big and so much, and that it's really nice to distill down information and technique into something really like bite size and easier to take on, and a little less challenging for people who are newer to knitting or people who don't love huge challenges with knitting. So that was my goal for the class. And once I realized I could do something for it, I was excited because that's information that is like right at the tip of my tongue. So some people left some really sweet comments on Facebook and in Ravelry about the class once they had a chance to watch it. And a lot of people noticed that I was really comfortable in front of the camera and really engaged and just totally myself. And that is partially because I know that material so well, and partially because I had an amazing team. I had a team, a producer, and two camera guys, and we were just like a well-oiled, very funny, tiny bit inappropriate, like the perfect amount of relaxed energy. There was a lot of laughter on set, and I was really comfortable doing things in like one or two takes, partially because they had me so at ease that I felt completely like myself, but I still said things that were correct. We didn't ever have to like bleep anything out or anything. Lola didn't show up too much. There was also a new friend of mine, Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini, who was filming next door, and they were having just as much fun as we were, and we could like hear laughter back when we were quiet in our room. We could hear laughter coming out of their studio and vice versa. And it's just so fun to have a good time while you're working with people. And I don't get to work with people often because I work so much at home, and then I kind of like interact with people on the internet. But having that kind of like face-to-face chance to really connect together was fun, and I'm really proud of the product. The trailer, if you guys got a chance to watch the trailer, is I think it's one of the nicest trailers I've ever seen, and I had nothing to do with that. I just they told me what to do, like look into the camera, raise your eyebrows, smile, be playful. So I did that and they caught it on camera, and then what they put together is like Project Runway style awesome. If that doesn't make you want to knit with beads, I don't, you might not just want to knit with beads. So in that class, I designed two patterns. I designed bead kerchief, which I'm wearing, and then I designed film, which I just have one of my design versions of film right here because the cuffs are actually still at Bluprint. I think they're in lockdown in their studios right now, so I don't have them back yet. Bead kerchief, which I'm sure some of you guys have seen this already, so I'll talk about it quickly, and I talk about it in the class a lot, is a top-down shawl. It is cast on over here, and you're working down in two triangles. Super easy. It's got this fun little lacy center spine, and then you can see when you get down to the bottom, you incorporate a mix of beads just into the bottom, almost quarter, I would say, of the shawl. And then there's an eyelet border and a decorative beaded bind off. So I show all of how to do that. I'm just enjoying how pretty that looks, so I'm gonna just keep filming because that's fun. I teach you how to do all of that in the class. I talk about buying beads, choosing yarn, all of those techniques. And same with film, which is an 8-stitch strand. What's hard about film is you're doing it on small yarn and small needles. And both of these projects have beads that are pre-strung and worked into the yarn, and then beads that are placed. So you learn both those techniques, and it's really accessible and fun. If you use my link below, I think you can, if you're not a member of Bluprint, you can check it out for 30 days or a week or something for free. I'm not quite sure what that is, just to get an idea of what the online learning experience with them is. You can buy the class if you want to bind the class and own it forever. I believe it's 50% off right now. And if it's not, I think I have a 50% off coupon they gave me. So I'll give you whatever links you need underneath this if you want to check it out. I know knitting with beads is not for everybody, so don't worry. If you're like, yeah, that's not for me, I'm going to wait on that. No hard feelings. All good. Bead kerchief, I did kits for both film and bead kerchief. They're in my shop. There's 8 colors in bead kerchief. There is, I'm going to show them to you, Copper Cloud, there's Venetian Sunset, there's Kaleidoscope, there's Smoke on the Water, which totally makes me want to sing Smoke on the Water. There is Heirloom. I love the beads on Heirloom. Look how delicate and sweet they are. There is Harvest. There is Royalty, which is the perfect color for purple, name for purple. And there is Perfection. All of these kits, I use Leading Men Fiber Art Showstopper, which is a really, really great basic merino wool superwash, little bit of nylon sock yarn. It is perfect for this kind of pattern where you have the wear and the tear of the beads on it. And those kits include the beads and the yarn and the download code for the pattern. The pattern is also up on Ravelry if you just want to buy the pattern and put together your own yarn and beads, which is really funny. And if you buy the class, then you actually get the pattern in the class. So you don't need to buy the pattern if you have the class because you have access to the patterns there. Let's see what else I have to tell you about that class. I just love going to Denver. I love Colorado. When I was out there, I got to go for a day snowshoeing up in the Rocky Mountains. It's so amazing to think that that was like a month and a half ago that I was there, almost 2 months ago that I was there, and how much has changed in that 2-month window. And it gives me hope that things are going to change back again. This is just a little pause. It's a rest for all of us to hunker down in our homes. But I really do think that those kind of experiences are going to happen again for all of us. Feeling very hopeful today. That would be my word of the day. Hopeful. Yay. Can you tell I had coffee today? Love coffee. The other thing is the last log, I showed you guys bead kerloop. And bead kerloop is a cowl version of bead kerchief. And I think that that will be out the first week of May, if not a little sooner. I'm waiting on tags to come for the kits. I figured out that you could make bead curloop with half the amount of yarn for bead kerchief, so I got smaller skeins being dyed by Leading Men Fiber Arts, and I'll do separate kits for bead curloop. Or if you already bought a bead kerchief kit, you could certainly use that for bead curloop. That would not be a problem. But I decided it really made sense to do two separate kits than try to do one kit, because it didn't, you'd have so much yarn and beads left over, but not quite enough to make two. You wouldn't have enough beads to make two with the bead kerchief kit. I'll talk about that again when we get there. But I've been loving them both. I absolutely love this Venetian sunset color. It makes me realize how I should wear color more. I feel like I don't wear enough bold color, and I enjoy it, especially on gray days like today, like we're having again in upstate New York one more time. The other thing that is going super well and has been such a joy to see you guys being involved in is the Pacifica DK knit along. That's up in my Ravelry group. We are on to phase 3 this Friday, which means you're up to the neckline split and you are going to be working the neckline and joining up back again for the left shoulder. And there, I've taught you most of the tricks already in phase 2. That was a really chunky phase. So phase 3, there's just a few things to point out to make sure you're on track following the charts for your size. And there will be a video that comes out for that on Friday. Next up, while you guys have been knitting Pacifica's DK, I have been working on a new design, and I'm excited to show this to you. So the last few logs, when I was in this room, you saw behind me that there was a whole sweater quantity of this yarn, and this is actually the last unwound skein of it, and it's from Catskill Merino. I got it. It's a great green color. I got it when I was at Rhinebeck at New York State Sheep and Wool last fall. It is a single ply merino, so I'm knitting it a little bit densely on the needles so it wears well. Merino is a soft fiber, and sometimes if it's not knit densely enough, it can end up pilling really quickly over time. So what I'm doing, and we'll see if I can show this whole thing, or I might have to like kind of back up. I'm knitting a tunic. And this tunic is knit side to side because that is how I seem to like to knit my sweaters. And right now I know that it looks like the neckline is huge. I went for this like box shaped neckline, and I'm going to pick up the stitches and work in with mitered corners at all 4 corners to tighten in that neckline about 1.5 inches. So it's going to end up being much closer up to the neck than it looks like it is right now. It's a tunic. It's a sleeveless tunic. And what it has, this side is done over here, is on the side panel, it's got a pocket down on the bottom. It's not super easy to show this. So it's got a pocket right here. But what happened was I did the first half, I did the left half, and I put it on, and I realized that because I'm making a tunic, it's quite long, like the length of it, and I forgot that like my butt and hip measurement is a little bit bigger than my bust measurement by quite a few inches. And I had kept it the same, like I gave myself even some ease in the bust, and I was like, oh, I'll be fine going down. But it was like tight over my butt, and that was making it ride up a bit and not be super flattering. So I left the left side in as knit, and I'm working on the right side now. And you can see I made the pocket bigger, which I like. The other pocket, I couldn't even put a ball of yarn in that other pocket. It was like not wide enough. So I made the pocket bigger, and I'm working up that side. And then I'm not super happy with how the seed stitch is acting up here on the shoulder. You can kind of see how it's bagging out. Oh, you can really see how it's bagging out. So I'm gonna maybe not use seed stitch up there unless I go down. I went down 1 needle size. I might need to go down 2 or 3, or I might just knit stockinette stitch and keep the seed stitch at the side panel, and then do the bind off, and that I think will be like a little tighter and neater. So I don't typically share that in depth, my design stuff. I knit and rip a lot when I'm designing, as I change my mind and as I realize I forgot about things like my ass. Sorry, that's not good. That's like a semi curse, whatever. We'll blame it on Lola. Um, so yeah, working on that. It's been a fun knit and it's a quick knit. Like that panel, once I sit down to do it, I need to decrease it up as I'm coming up the side. I have to do the math. I'll probably be able to knit that tonight while I'm watching my latest obsession, which I'll tell you about in a tiny bit. So that's my tunic. And next up, I'm looking at my list. So when you see me look down, um, this winter, January, February, March, we did something called the first quarter cal in my Ravelry group. We do it every year, and you basically can knit any one of my designs and you can knit any one of my designs and post pictures, and there's prizes and there's camaraderie and connection. And it ended at the end of March, which was not very good timing because it's really when we all needed connection the most, I think. Even though we have the Pacifica DK knit along going, I'm going to start a thread that'll be up in the Ravelry group by the time you guys are done watching this. I might get it up right before this goes live. Um, and it's going to be called the Stay Home and Knit Comfort Cal. And it's basically like everybody's knitting things and let's all knit together. I think when I was in the shower today, which is where I do all my good thinking, I decided that you can post pictures of anything you're knitting. It doesn't have to be one of my designs. I've never done that before in my Ravelry group. I've always been really careful to keep my Ravelry group just my designs. But I think right now that feels I know you guys know what I'm doing and what I'm knitting, and I appreciate your support so much. And I love seeing other things that you're knitting besides my designs, and I think other people do too. So you can post pictures of what you're knitting, link your projects with Stay Home and Knit. I'll give you guys a link in that knit along. I'll choose a picture every week. It doesn't need to be finished, just someone's whip or a finished picture, for somebody to win a pattern of their choice from me, an individual pattern that's released through my Ravelry store. So that's going to be the prize every week, is a pattern. And at the end of the knit along, all of the finished projects that are my designs, so all Nelkin designs that are finished at the end, are going to be eligible for one ginormous prize, which I don't know yet. And I also don't know the end of the knit along yet because I feel like we're going to need that knit along for a little while. And I just want to leave it there. And I think we'll know when it's time to wrap it up. And maybe it's when there's a vaccine and we can go out safely again. Who knows? I feel like I can't, things are changing so rapidly. I feel like I can't give a definitive end, but I can give us a start. And I had noticed that people are posting gorgeous finished photos all over the place, like in the Facebook group and on Ravelry. And I feel like they're getting a little lost and not seen. And this way, if we have a knit along, you'll know where to go to see what people are knitting and get to see their finished projects. So there you have it. The Stay Home and Knit Comfort Knit Along. Gotta love it. Other stuff I'm doing, kind of fun. So I have been wanting to sew something that isn't a mask for a while, but every time I get to the weekend, I end up having a list of like friends and family who ask me if I have any masks, and I always say, yeah, I'm working on some, and then I kind of bang out some on the weekend. So, I one of the things I ran into with my masks, and I'm going to show you one right here. I'll link again to, I've been linking to this same mask pattern every time. This mask pattern works for me to make a lot of quickly. I'm not sure it's like the best, most fitted, awesome pattern out there. It actually fits a filter inside of it really well. I know some people have been putting kind of like not N95s, but that style mask inside of these, or putting this over it to protect it a bit. Um, it's got casings on the side, which is one of the things I really like about it, because with the casing, if the elastic wears out over time or you want to put a different kind of tie in it, it's really easy to change that out instead of having the elastic be sewn in, or the knit fabric ties being sewn in. But What's really annoying about casings is like my hands were getting really tired with the safety pin kind of like sliding the elastic through the casing. And then one day I realized that if I took my beetle needle, and this is what the packaging for a beetle needle looks like. A beetle needle is a tool that you use. I use it in my Bluprint class for placing beads onto a stitch. And it's got like a little crochet hook in the end. If you stick your elastic onto the beetle needle, and then you take that beetle needle and you open up your casing, and then you slide it through, and there's a little bit of maneuvering so you don't end up in a weird foldy spot. I'm doing it, I promise. There you go. And then, well, it didn't work. No, it did. It came off. I didn't have it in there all the way. And then you've got your elastic threaded all the way through the casing with your knitting tool. You gotta love that. I loved how it didn't work for that one little second, like classic on camera. And then you can just knot your elastic and you're good to go. So you can also do this with a crochet hook, like a beading crochet hook with a fine tip. But if you have a beetle needle, you've got that nice long even cord to go through. And then you have a mask, and you can see that this one has sheep on the back. I'm not going to put it on because you won't be able to understand a word I'm saying or see that I'm smiling. So I only wear these at the post office and grocery store. They're not my favorite thing, but they're pretty important right now. There's a bunch of people, my friend Kate, selling them on Etsy. If you don't have a mask, they're really not that hard to sew if you need to make a few. It's a great, actually, beginner sewing project. I anticipate that a bunch of people are going to pick up sewing after this because they're going to realize that it's fun and easy. I did see a hysterical YouTube video this week of this woman who was making masks, and she like cut her finger with her scissors, and she like sewed her, I mean, it was all a video, it was pretend, and she like sewed her arm with her sewing machine, and she's like drinking wine, and she did not do well with the mask making. It was really funny. I'll see if I can find that link if you guys, it was like viral. I feel like everybody saw that one this week. That what I'm not sewing that I want to sew, but it's scary, is there's a tunic in this book that I got from Gail Rome that is adorable. I'm going to find it for you so I can show it to you. I should have marked it. Oh, here it is. It's got this really, really cute collar. Do you guys see that collar? And it's got a pocket, which you guys all know I love. And there's the back of the collar right there. But dudes, this whole book is in Japanese. And then the patterns, has anybody ever worked with a Japanese sewing pattern before? I've opened this thing 3 times and I close it again. The patterns are nested on top of each other, so you have to like find your pattern size, find your pattern number for the pattern you're making, the design you're making in the book, and then you got to attempt to find the pattern pieces, and then you've got to trace over them. Luckily, I have Swedish sewing tracing paper for that. And then you got to try to divine all of the instructions that are completely in Japanese. And what stops me is I cannot figure out if seam allowances are included in this or I have to add them, which actually means like measuring all the pattern pieces for the size I think I'm supposedly supposed to be making, and then measuring myself and deciding if it makes sense or not. And you can see why I haven't even started it yet. I know that when I am up for the intellectual stimulation of making that it's not going to be hard to sew for me, but just wrapping my brain around the pattern pieces is fun. So leave me a note if you've ever sewn with a Japanese sewing pattern. I know I could do some more online research maybe that would suss out a few things for me, but that would be too easy. Why would I do that? Next up, cooking. So we've been cooking more than ever lately because we are not going out, and takeout, we have to drive like a half hour into Ithaca to really get takeout. There's a few places in our town, Trumansburg, that do takeout, but I haven't really been in the mood for it. So we've been cooking a lot. And this week, besides baking bread, which I have been doing twice a week, and loving. We made some really good pea soup in the Instant Pot and didn't even use a recipe. I basically took some butter, or we use ghee, so I used some of that in the Instant Pot on saute, and I put in some onions and I sauteed the onions, and I threw in like it was probably like one onion, and then I threw in a tablespoon of curry and kind of like let that get savory for just like half a minute, and then I splashed some white wine in there and reduced that to kind of like deglaze the butter and the curry and the onion. And then I dumped in 2 bags of frozen peas, or like a bag and a half of frozen peas, and a can of coconut milk. And then I put the Instant Pot on high for 5 minutes, and I let the steam release naturally. And then I took my immersion blender and blended that crap up, and it was so good and creamy. And I know pea soup is not for everybody, but it just tastes like it was like curried spring soup. It was so yummy. So we enjoyed that this week. We also made a pesto-y thing with ramps that I found in the woods on a hike last week. And ramps are basically like a wild spring leek. Like you can only find them in certain little patches in the woods, and they're yummy, and they also taste like spring. So we're getting some tastes of spring around here, even though it isn't spring. And then the other thing that Bella made that was superb, and I'll give you guys a link below, and I don't have any to show you because we ate it all, is we all really like the Trader Joe's roasted red pepper and eggplant spread. And we don't have a Trader Joe's up here, and Bella used to get it down in Baltimore and bring it home to us. But we found a recipe to make something really similar to it online, and it came out great, and we ate it all. We made it a little spicier than the Trader Joe's one, which made it even better. But I'll give you guys a link. If you guys know the spread I'm talking about, you will be excited to have this recipe in your lives, I think. So that's cooking for you. Lots of bread. Did I mention the bread? So good. Listening for podcast wise, I've been listening to My Favorite Murder, which also is not for everybody, but I really like the two girls who tell their murder stories, and they also just talk about life in a way that I can really relate to, and I enjoy their energy, and they're super funny. I'm only allowed to listen to My Favorite Murder in phases, because sometimes I have bad dreams. But that's what I've been listening to, besides the news, which I listen to in the morning and at night, and then like in the morning, and then when I'm cooking dinner, and then I don't really check the news again. I'm finding that less news makes me a saner person right now, because there's not much I can do but stay home and behave and entertain you guys, I guess, is one of my new jobs. I'm finding that the news driving me crazy, so taking a break on that. And then I'm still reading The Red Tent by Anita Diamant, because by the time I'm going to bed every night, I'm exhausted and I seem to fall asleep very quickly. And maybe it's because the book isn't as interesting to me as the first time around, because it's my second time reading it. So it's been great to fall asleep with. But I don't think I've ever read a book so slowly as I'm reading The Red Tent. And then watching, I'm super embarrassed to admit this. I've been watching Outer Banks on Netflix, which just came out very, very recently. Last week I watched Little Fires Everywhere, which is I think it's on Hulu. And I had read that book and loved the book, and the series was superb. So if you have Hulu or can do like a 2-week free trial, watch that. And then you can watch Outer Banks on Netflix, which is horribly entertaining. And it's basically like a teenage murder mystery. There's boat chases and surfing and like struggles between the haves and have-nots, and it's highly entertaining. And I've been staying up way too late watching that. I need to finish it so I can go to bed a little earlier and wake up a little earlier. So that's with this week's log. There was a lot to tell you guys. I don't normally yammer on quite so long. Um, So the thing we do with logs at the end of every log is I give you guys a prompt, and you leave a comment either in the thread underneath the YouTube video or over in the thread on Ravelry. And I go through those prompts and I choose 5 people from YouTube and 5 people from Ravelry, and we do a Zoom together on Sundays at 4 o'clock. So I send out a message Saturday afternoon with who the winners are, and then that's how long you have to leave your comment. And then 10 people are chosen to do the Zoom. And last week we had people from Australia and Trinidad and Germany and the US. And it was incredibly interesting to hear what everybody's lives are like and decisions their governments are making. And so it was interesting to hear the differences, but it was also very interesting to hear the similarities, and also get to see everybody's knitting and smiling faces, and just really connect with each other. So that's me and the Ravelry moderators, Justine, Lois, Susie, and Jen, when her toddler lets her not have a tea party and join us. So this week's prompt is it's kind of a markety one because I get to market and every now and again. This is a business a little bit too. Tell me which color of the oh my God, I already forgot the name of it. Tell me which color of bead kerchief you like the best. I just want to hear. And tell me if you think that if you think there's a color that's missing in this palette. I mean, this is a lot, but if there's a color that's missing, you could also leave that comment. But to win, just tell me which color is your favorite color. I want to hear. That's fun for me to know. And I'll give you a link to the kits in the shop so that you can look at all of them if you need to see them again, because I did go over them very quickly at the beginning. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay home and knit and be comfortable. And if you are struggling and you feel comfortable letting us know how you're struggling, that will help us help you, okay? Take care.